Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be about this Starlink again. And I noticed throughout my travels, the Starlink is becoming very popular on many RVs. Most of the installs I've seen is usually on that flagpole on the ladder. And I think that's really popular because that's probably the easiest method to install the Starlink. And what I found about that method or any other method where it comes standard is kind of a pain in the butt to set this up each and every time. So if you've seen my previous Starlink video, this is a little bit different. And I mounted mine on the roof. And the reason is I just did not like setting it up each and every time. And 99.9% of the time, it actually works perfectly fine just mounted on the roof. I think most people don't end up mounting it on the roof because, well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I think it's a mental hurdle to get through how you attach it to the roof. Now, mine is not attached to the roof with any type of screws. These screws don't go through the roof. It's actually on there with just VHB tape only, and it can be undone pretty easy. The other is you'll see I have this excess wire wrapped around here, so if I ever want to take the Starlink off, it's pretty easy to do. And then the other mental hurdle is how do you get this cable through the roof, because most people don't want to drill a hole in their roof. So I have that mounted on there with 3M VHB tape, and then the actual cable, I went through this Winegard Air 360. Now this Winegard Air 360, these are pretty popular on the newer RVs. So I just follow the path of the old hole that's below here and pull the cable out the side of this Winegard. So I didn't have to drill a hole. I didn't have to drill any holes or screws to attach to the roof. So it's a pretty simple install. So if you're curious on this install, stick around and I'll show you how I did it. It's a little bit different than my previous Starlink video. I'll put the link in the description, but this time around I actually made the Starlink flat mount. It does not rotate, it does not turn like my last one did, and I've done some thorough testing on this, and if you leave it in this stationary position, I find that the performance is actually much better than when it actually tracks or follows the satellite. I don't know the science behind it, but that's been my testing. It's really easy for me to put back the way it was. I just have a hole on the bottom where I just disconnected the motor. Now with this installation, it does work in motion, but that's more of a benefit. You know, I know a lot of people are buying that new high-performance Starlink that's meant for flat mount for in-motion use, but that's not actually my primary purpose. My primary purpose was really just not having to set this up each and every time. Now, if you like that flagpole, so be it, but I can't imagine it being very fun setting that up each and every time. And if you've seen my previous install, I do have this through bolt here, so I just need to remove this, and this Starlink just pops off just like the factory setting, so I can use all this excess cabling and I can still remotely mount this satellite anywhere I want if I end up having obstructions. But honestly, through all my travels, I have never taken it off the roof on my last RV or this RV. So if you're interested in this type of installation, stick around and I'll show you how I did it. In today's video, we're going to do another Starlink install. I'm going to install my satellite here a little bit different than what I did last time. Now I'm taking some ideas from others that have done this already. I'm going to install this Starlink flat mount. So basically I'm going 5 inches from, I'm using a flexible tape measure. And I got this idea from others. You know, there's a bunch of YouTube videos out there already, so this is nothing new. But I'm going to lock this satellite, this Starlink satellite, in the fixed position. So it's going to be straight up in the, I call it mounted flat. So when it travels down the road, there's been some comments in my previous videos that the Starlink signal may work better with it just mounted flat instead of it tilting by itself. So let's give that a shot. What you use is this 1-inch Forstner bit. Lucky I have most of these tools on hand. So they basically go 5 inches in from this direction, 5 inches from this direction, and drill a hole. And you just barely want to poke through this plastic. So let's give this a shot. Looks like I didn't do any damage on the inside. Next time around, I might put a little piece of tape on here so you don't end up drilling too deep. Inside here, there's a power connector for the Starlink motor. And there it is right there. I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of tape on this. This way it's going to act like a handle. If I ever need to grab it, I can just fish it out. Then you get yourself one of these 1-inch plastic plugs, and we'll plug this up. Just for surety, we'll definitely put a piece of tape on here because we don't want that piece to fall out. So that's step 1. Step 2, now my mount for the Starlink, what I ended up using is this volcano mount. Now this volcano mount is a generation 1 mount if you've seen my previous videos, and this is a generation 2 dish. So we're going to I have one left over here. My previous one I left in my last RV, or was sold with the last RV. So we're going to go ahead and put this in here. So it has one of these adapters, so generation 1 to generation 2 adapter. We're going to go ahead and pound this in here. Then we need to, looks like we need to secure this screw back in. And that adapter should be all set, so the Starlink is ready. So step 1, Starlink is ready to go. Step 2, we put this adapter in the volcano mount. I'll put all the links in the video description to where I got the actual inside adapter. You know, the volcano mount, you buy it directly from Starlink. I don't know if they sell them anymore because that is a generation 1 mount. And then 2, I'm switching it up a little bit. 2 is, I have this 12-inch by 12-inch aluminum plate. And this plate, last time I used I think I used a 1/4 inch thick, a pretty thick plate. This time I used a very thin, I don't know, I think this is like a 16th inch aluminum plate. It's bendy. And I'm going to install it a little bit different. On this one, I'm going to attach, if you look at the volcano mount, it only has a surface area right about here that is flat. The rest is actually not flat. And I'm going to attach this to this with my VHB tape like I normally do. And well, stick around, I'll show you what I'm doing. Before I do anything, I always clean everything up with some kind of cleaning agent, and this one I'm using some alcohol here. You want to make sure your surfaces are always very clean. And then next, if you recall, I always use a primer. I'm sure you could get by without using the primer, but I've always had success using primers, so that's what I'm going to stick with. If you're ever worried about the VHB tape falling off, I would highly suggest using this 3M VHB tape primer, because once you use this primer, it's a pretty foolproof method of your VHB tape not falling off. So we are just putting this on our surface area here. And just follow the instructions. I think you give it a couple of minutes to dry. You know, the primer's got to be completely dry, so this is not ready yet. So it looks like this primer is all dried up. So I have this 2-inch wide VHB tape, and let's start out with just the one side. I'm just going to, with this primer, it sticks on there pretty fast. I'm going to do the other side here as well. Only part that's gonna stick is really there. Let's see if I can cut this excess off. Just to make it look better. So yeah, the rest is I'm going to stage it like this. And I'll put a marker around it. That way I can get some kind of pattern. It doesn't have to be exact. I think if we draw something straight across like that and like that, we can apply the primer on there. Let me go ahead and do that. So no big deal if you go over. You wanna, again, this may be way overkill, but you'll know. So you'll have security that your VHB tape is not going to go flying off. So let that dry. Okay, my VHB tape is all, or my primer's all dry. I'm going to use this roller and activate the VHB tape here. And the water is really the enemy of a lot of adhesives, even VHB tape. What I'm going to do is, I can obviously, once this goes on, I can seal the outside, but I won't be able to get on the inside at all. And I'm going to go ahead and put that sealant on ahead of time on the inside. All peeled and ready to go. So what I'm going to do is, I will put a generous amount of sealant in the areas that I won't be able to get to. So really that's the inside. And it's okay to get it on the VHB tape. So I'm putting a generous amount here. This may be overkill for most general application, but when it's all done, I want to be sure that nothing is going to be flying off the roof. Just like that. So now when I stick this down, it's going to be a one and done. You won't be able to get it back up. So let me see if I can just eyeball this. Like I said, it's a one and done now. And what I'll do now is I'll put a bead of caulking on the outside. And of course I'm not quite prepared for it. I should have a rag and dish soap and all that, but this is not a beauty project, so I think I can get by with just eyeballing this. And I'm gonna go ahead and fill these holes in because you can see the tape. I don't think I explained why I'm putting this on this plate. The purpose of it is I'm going to use this entire piece and put VHB tape. This is a 12 by 12 piece, so it has a lot of surface area to go on the roof. I didn't feel secure that this little surface area was going to be enough to be stable on the roof with that entire Starlink. So I'm attaching this plate to this with VHB tape, and then on top of it, I'm going to mechanically attach with 4 little screws, 2 on this side and 2 on this side. And again, just to hold that VHB tape a little bit better and make myself feel better. So let me go ahead and get this cleaned up. Like I mentioned, definitely not a beauty project here. My next step here is I'm going to mechanically attach this. So let me show you what I'm doing here. So I'm going to be mechanically attaching from below, and I'm going to drill some pilot holes here, just random. Okay. And I've already sorted this out. I got a drill bit here and an actual tap. I'm going to tap from the bottom through this aluminum. So when I screw it up from the bottom, you'll actually thread through this aluminum piece. This volcano mount, it's a little bit thicker, so I should be able to thread that. And then this bottom, unfortunately, these screws have this conical shape here. Hopefully that aluminum, that bottom will be thin enough it'll actually suck it in. We'll see how that goes. Okay, I think we got it here. So from down below, let's take this cover off here. So we're gonna drill this way this time with an actual tap. So this is going to physically make threads through that metal. I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but can you see those threads in that hole? There's so many ways to do this, and this is the way I decided to do it. This mechanical fastener is probably way overkill. I don't think you'll need it. The purpose of that primer is that basically this piece here and this piece with that VHB tape, it's never coming off. Now if you want to know how to take it off, look at one of my old videos and you will see how to remove this VHB tape easily. You know, if you heat it up, it will come off. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna put a countersink hole here, and just enough to get that that head mostly countersunk. So let's give this a try first. Let's give this a shot. Okay, so that one turned out really good. If you can see this, the lighting will pick that up, but that is completely flush. So it looks like I just need to countersink it a little bit more. I'll continue on. But you can see I have these 4 stainless screws. They're all countersunk, and this is going to be the last of it for tonight. I'm going to wrap up after this. But my usual, I'm going to put the VHB primer. I'm wondering, you know, a lot of solar panels get installed with that VHB tape. I'm wondering how many use the primer or not. So the primer may be overkill, I'm not sure, but I know I mentioned in one of my earlier videos that I did have a failure of the VHB tape when I didn't use a primer on one of those flexible solar panels, not the ones I had on my Winnebago. This primer is definitely a reassurance. You don't have to worry about going down the road and your solar panels or any other items falling off your roof. I know I have thoroughly tested this. We'll go ahead and let this dry. Give it about a minute or two. I ended up cleaning up most of this caulking. I'm going to do another round tomorrow. But you can see I have these screws up here. I'll end up putting some washers and some nuts on here later and then cutting off the extra. But this will give me a good, secure mechanical attachment from this plate to this plate besides the VHB tape. And then the VHB tape of this large 12 by 12, that'll be a nice surface area to attach to the fiberglass. Then you don't need any screws at all. All right, looks like the primer's all dry. So this is all set to go for tomorrow. I'll clean this up a little bit better tomorrow. Put these nuts and bolts on. Well, I guess I can do that now. Let's go ahead and do this. So I didn't show you earlier, these are number 632 stainless steel. I'm gonna double nut these. So how I'm gonna do because of the vibrations, I always worry about vibrations going down the road. So I have these plain old regular nuts here that I will cinch down. And that's the other reason why I threaded it. If you didn't thread it from down below, the screw would just keep spinning on you, and you don't have access to that screw head underneath that VHB tape. A deep socket here. And on top of that, what I'm putting on is one of these nylock lock nuts. So basically I have a double nut on here, and my top one is an actual lock nut itself. So this will definitely be a foolproof way that this plate is not going to come off this thinner aluminum plate. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up for the night. Tomorrow I'll get this cleaned up. Probably cut off this excess with a cutting wheel. Maybe put a little bit better bead of caulking on here, and we'll call it a project and get this up on the roof. I already have things set up, and just like before, I'm going to put the primer on here, and then we'll put the Starlink up here with the VHB tape method. So let me get this part here. Okay, we'll let this dry for a while. So you see I've got the VHB tape on the bottom of this plate already. And let's go ahead and take this off. Before I take the sticky tape off, I'm going to run it with a roller. Okay. And I'll use this one of these razors. It assists in taking this red stuff off. All right, let's check this. Looks like it's almost dry. We'll give it a minute or so, and we'll stick this VHB tape on. Okay, well, we got the primer is dry, and we're going to put this satellite on. Like I mentioned before in my previous install, it's a one and done. Once you set it down, that's it. There's no forgiveness on this with the primer on there. So you want to make sure you get this on there good the first time. Just like that. Alright, that's it. We're going to let this cure, and then we will end up putting some Dicor. This roof has, the sealant on this roof is actually Dicor, so I'm going to match the exact same sealant, and we'll put Dicor along these edges as well as up here. And then after I run the new cable, I'll put this through bolt in. Here's a little overview. So you have the Starlink. This is that old obsolete Winegard satellite. This is one of the first videos I ever made. So I'm going to route my wiring through this WineGuard 360 from down below, and I'm going to run the Starlink cable through here. So that's going to be my next step. I think yesterday I showed you the Starlink mount. That's over there. And roof access, we're going to actually access it through this WineGuard Air 360 Plus. I've seen two different models of this where the top cover can come off, but based on what I see here, it looks like I need to take the whole thing off and take all the sealant out. I don't think I'll bore you with that detail. The really good thing about this die core, if you can see, is it comes up pretty easy. So compared to the silicone self-leveling sealant, this die core is much easier to remove. I don't know if I take it as good as bad now doing this project. Of course this is good, it makes my life much easier. But I guess from a damage standpoint, it could get damaged a little bit easier. But just like that, I have all the die core off, and I'm guessing there's probably some butyl tape that this thing is attached to, so I will have to take the metal scraper and get underneath here and release that butyl tape. It's either butyl tape or die core, but it looks like it's butyl tape. So I'll need both hands, but removing all that die core, I think it only took 2-3 minutes. So really simple job. Okay, I got this pried off, and just as I suspected, there's butyl tape around here. Stuff is really sticky, but I would say it's consistency of a soft clay. But you can get it off by using it itself and pull it out like this. So I'll probably have to spend a good 15-20 minutes cleaning this up. Be back. Okay, we're getting ready to feed the Starlink cable. We're going up through the roof through this WineGuard gateway. If you've never taken one of these off, depends on which orientation it is in, but this one I already know, it just slides over like that. I'll have to take this bracket plate off, and we're going to feed the wires up through the roof, through this hole. It's definitely going to be a two-person job. Okay, so we're pulling up the cable here. I have a helper down below, and we're just pulling through this existing hole. Looks like it's going to be a pretty simple project. I have some slack here. Alright, that's the end. We got all the slack here, and I'm going to end up drilling a hole through here, but I'll need both hands, but let me get it prepped. Okay, my next step, now that I have the wires fished up to the roof, is on the cover of the WineGuard itself. This is the rear. So this would flip over like this. I'm going to drill a hole, and I'm going to drill a hole. If you look at, I have this kit right here. This is somebody on Etsy made, it's basically a grommet for the Starlink cable. And I'll end up putting this grommet in this hole here, and we'll feed the cables through and end up putting this on there. And then we'll end up using this black silicone to match the color. The other option I had was you could get one of these grommets. I did get one of these from Amazon, but the problem with this one is you can see the large hole you would have to drill, and this one is just much smaller. This is just big enough to get the end of the Starlink in. So that's what I plan on doing. There's other methods, other ways. I didn't do it like this with the Winnebago, but now that I see somebody actually made a part like this, I might as well utilize this. And I don't think I can really show you. I'm not set up with a proper camera here. So I'm just going to drill a hole probably right here. It's a perfect spot. It'll be centered on that back, and I know it will clear these this giant WineGuard Air 360. If you look inside, it's actually completely hollow. All there is just this little circuit board on top with this coax cable and nothing else on top besides these little antennas. So pretty funny that they put this giant dish up here. All right, let's get started. Okay, this ended up turning out and working out really good. So I have this upside down, but I fed this tubing in the back. I'll apply some of this black caulking on here. Like I said, I don't have the proper camera set up here, so I'm just making do with what I have here. I can't even set my camera up, and I'm too lazy to, I just want to get this done. So I'm also going to apply some caulking on the back of this grommet, and I'll do this and I'll circle back with you. Okay, I'm getting ready to mount my Starlink router. So here's the router. I cleaned it all up with alcohol, and this is my router mount. I bought this from Etsy, so this is what I'm using here. This is a wall mount. It has locations for 4 screws, as well as I'm going to be using this clear tape. It's like a double stick tape, and I'm going to mount it up here, right up by the TV. There's a 2x material here that has plenty of backing on here for 2 of the screws, and the other 2 screws are just going to be on this paneling, and that's why I'm using that clear tape. Also, the weight of it is going to sit on this trim. And then if you look above, that's where I have my Starlink cable running down here. So I'll show you the finished project. Alright, here I have the final Starlink on the inside. Let's, you can see I have the Starlink cable going up, and it's going up through the roof this way. I'll likely put some kind of white wire mold on here so it blends into the wall better. And it just follows along this channel, and then of course it goes right back up into the Starlink router here. So that's really about the best I can do. You know, that wiring there is a little bit ugly. We'll make sure we take care of that. But if I ever want to disconnect the Starlink, I just need to take this, you know, the power is right there, and this works for us. So if you want to mimic anything like this, if you have the actual WineGuard 360, you can come right down this side. You can see I drilled a hole on the side of the this, I think it's the Wi-Fi cover, and I just wrap the wire around here, and then I use that I think it's that clear alien tape. It's that double-sided tape. That's what's holding this cable. I'll make it a little bit prettier than that, but that's better than drilling a whole new hole on the roof. So that's my final Starlink install. We'll go back up to the roof and you'll see the final finished project. Okay, here's the final finished project. You can see I have the die core on here. I ended up changing out all the original screws on here. The original screws were all stripped. Self-leveling die core is really easy to put on. This is where I put on that silicone. This stuff is a little harder to work on. You can see the glob of a mess I made, but it does function. It's all waterproof. I just zip tied these cables. You can see the extra Starlink cabling wrapped around this, really easy to unwrap. And this Starlink here, you can see I'm putting in the through bolt here. I just need to put these nuts on. But if I ever wanted to take this off, all I need to do is remove this through bolt, and the whole dish can come off, and remove the slack, and you can put it anywhere on the campsite. Just another very similar but a little bit different installation than my last one. You know, there's plenty of videos out there on different methods of installation, but this is what I have. I have it flat mounted, so you can see where I put the tape over the plug. If I ever wanted to put it back in, I just need to remove the plug and plug the motor back in, but it will ride in that position from now on. And I've already tested it, and it works out pretty good. So I'm happy with the installation overall. So if you want to copy what I have, just go back to the original video and you will see what I did. But that Starlink dish is about the same height as my air conditioners. So it's not any higher. It didn't make my overall roof line any higher. So I'm happy with that. I'm surprised by this wine guard. Just a big empty void in the center, but it did make a good chase for my Starlink cable. And that's really it. Hopefully you like videos like this. I know there's plenty of Starlink videos out there to watch, but just gave you another example of what can be done. And that's really it. If you made it this far, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, and we'll see you on the next video. Now, a disclaimer is that this install here, this is my second type of install, which is a little bit different than my previous. I am also doing a third install, so this is not my final. I'm very happy with the results, but I like to do some experimentations. I'm going to do a new install in the future where I mount this where it's a little bit lower, because right now it's right at about the same height as this satellite, which is fine. I like to bring it down a little bit lower if I can, but still keep that original setting. I think there's modifications where you can cut the whole case off. I'm not going to that extent, but you'll have to wait until I do that in the future if I ever get around to it.